Hi, welcome to some ideas to use 20 fat quarters with GourmetQuilter. I'm Susan Clare, GourmetQuilter, and we're having a whole lot of fun. We started out with 20 fat quarters and we're doing 20 different things using those same 20 fat quarters all the way through. So in part one, or idea number one, we cut out all the fat quarters, so we had a stack of 20 fat quarters to start with, and there's a pattern for those who are interested through GourmetQuilter.com, and there's more information on the website. And so what we did was we had a chart to cut our fat quarters, so we basically stacked them and cut them all the same. So all 20 fat quarters were cut out and labelled, so we had lots of pieces all labelled. We've now used some of them because we are now up to idea number 10. We're pretty much halfway through, so that's pretty exciting. So because we're up to idea number 10, we needed the pieces that are labelled number 10, so we've got a 10A and a B and a C. And I've already used some of the little bits because I've started doing some of the blocks here. So what we're looking at doing this time is this amazing boat quilt. So we've got the sails and the boats and the little sashing posts are all from the fat quarters, and then we've got a background and a binding and the little mast, and we've also just added a little flag, and they're all little 3D flag, kind of cute. So individually there's one block here, so I thought I'd just run through how we make the block. So it's nothing particularly new in the way of techniques, except possibly the little flag maybe. So we'll go through it all though, because it's kind of fun to do. So initially I think we'll start with the boat. So the boat is this long piece here, and then we've got some, I've got them all here, some squares that we're putting on the end to take the corners off, so that we end up with a boat that looks a little bit like this. So what I've done is I've drawn my line diagonally onto the square, and then I've drawn a second line about half an inch away, no more than half an inch away, and then we're going to cut between them. So that's how I've done those, and these are the little offcuts from the boats. So I'll go ahead and I'll cut this one. I've got it pretty much ready, so I've done my 2 lines of sewing, and I'm cutting between the lines because we're going to just save these little corners to use in a future project coming up soon. So I'll just press this so that we've got a boat to work with. So then we're going to press that seam into the boat itself, both ends. So we are keeping the cut off triangles because we're going to need them to make some other little bits and pieces. We're trying to use up pretty much the whole fat quarters. It's quite a fun exercise to do. So there's my boat. Now we need to make the sails and get them ready. So they're a larger triangle. So what we've got there is some rectangles for the background, and we've got some squares, which are these ones here, for the sails. And we're doing the same sort of thing with the sails as we've done with the boat. So we're going to draw our line diagonally on the square. It's easier to do it on the square, and then another line, I would say slightly under half an inch, because we're wanting these triangles to be as large as we can reasonably get them. So I would definitely take a scant half inch away from that first line. The first line needs to be on the diagonal, the next one could be just under half an inch away from that line, and then we can cut between them as long as there's a reasonable seam allowance still. But that makes this very usable for another project that I've got in mind. And then we're just going to trim between them the same as we've been doing, and I've got another couple here, so I might pick this one because I think I need one going, I'm not sure which direction I need. Now the other thing is you do need to make sure that they're going in opposite directions. So I've got a couple here so that you can see before I've cut them, we hope. I've got my seams going this way on this one, and the seams going this way. So the 2 sails, because they're on a rectangle, you need to make sure that they're going in 2 different directions. So half and half of the squares that we have. And same thing then, we're just going to press these, and again I'm pressing into the sail. That's partly because I've got a white sort of background and I don't want the seam out there, but I also just quite like it pressed into the sail. It just makes sense to me. The sail would be sitting on top of the background. So we've got some sails. Now these we're keeping for another time. We don't need to trim them for this time. We'll need to trim them up for the next project. And the same thing with the little ones. We're just going to be saving all of those. So fun. So we've got our boat and we've got 2 sails. And so what we need to do now is we need to just pop a little bit of background underneath each sail. So I've actually done one of them here, so we might turn the boat around so you can see it. And I'll get another one of these, maybe this one, because it's sitting here now, ready. So we've got some just little narrow rectangles here. They're not hugely large, however, they're absolutely perfect for the job. So we need to pop one of those along that lower edge there of the sail, so there's just that little bit of space. And then that one we are just going to press down into the rectangle there. And then we need a mast. All boats need a mast. So we've got these nice little, these are fairly narrow, these little strips here as well. Same size as these little strips, so it's not too bad. So we've got a mast that comes up the middle here, and then we're going to have a flag. So the flag starts out as a square. And what we do with the square is we fold it in half and press it, and then we're going to fold it. I haven't folded it so that it's an exact little equal triangle. I've just folded it so it's on a bit of an angle there, and then I've folded that one over so it's a slightly pointy shape. It doesn't need to be huge, so that works pretty well, and that's going to sit whichever way you want it to when we pop that seam in there. So initially I found it was easier to put the mast onto this one. I'm going to put the the flag onto this one. So I'm going to put the mast onto this one here first. Some of these pieces are quite small, but because it's all fairly straight, it's really not that much of a problem. I have found it's definitely easier to press things as we go, particularly when it's small like this. So I'm just going to press the mast over. And now we need to get this one ready to sew. So we just want this little flag to sit at the top of the sail, so where it's going to intersect on the top of the sail there, and we've got to watch this little raw edge corner here, that it's within the seam allowance there. So that's going to intersect there. It wouldn't matter if it was a little bit higher up, but you don't want to go too high. And then we're going to put this piece over the top so that that gets included in the seam as we sew it. So you could pop a pin or a clip or something if you wanted to, or you could stitch it on first and then come and do the same kind of whatever you're comfortable with on that particular point. And then we're just sewing that seam and including that little flag there. Sure it hasn't moved. I think it's all right there. So it's got a few little pieces, this block, but I think it's worth making. I love the quilt. I'm pretty thrilled with how that little quilt looks. So now we're just going to press that. So I'm pressing the seam into the mast both times, so that should sit in quite snugly in there. And the other thing, I am going to just trim that off because it's quite bulky, just level with the seam there. So that's all looking pretty good. We're actually pretty much ready to finish our block off. It hasn't taken that long at all. So now we just need to attach all of that to the actual boat. So I'll go ahead and get that on, and that'll be our block done. And then I'll just quickly mention what we're doing. We've got those sashing posts to do. We've done the same technique before, so I can just run through it again quickly. So So they're quite fun, these little boats, because we've got the 20 colours throughout the quilt. You've just got to move the fabrics around, and I really didn't do a whole lot of selection on them. I pretty much just picked them up randomly and allowed the colours to be. I just made sure I didn't put two of the same in the same block. Otherwise I think it's quite fun. And in fact on this one you might notice there's a couple of bits that look like they're missing. This one here looks like it's missing a sail. It isn't. This fabric is very similar in colour to the background. But I just left it because it was one of the fat quarters. This is the boat, so we've got a little ghost boat here and a couple of ghost sails. Maybe it's particularly foggy in that particular area. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I just thought it was actually quite fun, even like that. So I just left it like that. So now I've got my blocks here. So that's the boats, that's the sails. So the sashing post pieces, now as I said, we've done these before. These are the little sashing posts here. And we did them in the last quilt. We've done them on a cushion. So it's a square. We're starting out with a square, and then we're putting two smaller squares on the opposite sides, and then we're just trimming off 1/4 inch away, and we're not trying to save these little ones. These are not worth saving, not even for me, unless you were doing some other type of work. But for just patchwork, they're not big enough to really join to anything else. So and then we just press those two out, and then we pop two more on. And you can draw on the back of these if you want to get your lines. For me, I find that they're small enough that I feel I can just sew by eye from point to point. If you're not sure about that, of course you can mark them or fold them, put a little crease in them so that you can see where that diagonal line is. And of course you can chain piece these all through as well. I'm just doing just one just to show you at the moment. Such a happy little quilt. I think that these little boats, they're just cheerful. And I think it's all those multiple colours that make it so nice. And of course you could make it in different colours. What about black and white boats? Or, I don't know, I'm sure there's something you could do. Black and white might be quite nice with another colour thrown in. So that's how we're making the little sashing posts. So we've trimmed away the little corners, and then we're going to, the way I like to do it is attach some of those to the sashings so that they come along, and I find that if I put a piece of this, whoa, where's the sashings? Here they are. I generally like to attach the sashing to the block on the sides where applicable. They're not on the outside, but on these internal ones, and then I attach that as well. So it just kind of makes it a bigger block so that you've got this. You just have to keep an eye on which ones have the sashings and which ones don't, of course. As I said, the side ones don't underneath the lower ones. There's no sashing under the lower ones, but you can usually work that out from a diagram of a quilt or something, or you can of course just do the whole long strips and do them in rows that way. I just find it's easier than managing narrow strips for that length, particularly larger quilts. These ones are probably not too bad, but anyway, so that's it. Sashing posts, blocks, putting it all together. There's some posts in the corners of the block border. There's just the one not too wide border, just to sort of give the boats a little bit of space. And then I've just used this little stripe again in the mast and again on the binding, and I thought that kind of pulled that all together with all those colours. So I hope you're enjoying the boat block. I hope you're enjoying the ideas all together with the fat quarters. I'm enjoying it, and I will see you again with fat quarter idea number 11.